Welcome to Governance Now. This is Gitanjali Minhas and you're watching Checks and Balances. Cross-cellular networks, call drops and network disconnection have become a nuisance for users. Despite the coming in of technologies like 4G and 5G, and despite upgrading their devices to experience faster data on their 5G compatible smartphones, users are subjected to call drops and network disconnection. Mobile connectivity is a technology that involves radio frequency engineering. Now, mobile networks primarily run on RF spectrum. Unless they are of the right amplitude and strength, there will be issues in the quality of voice and data. Unlike earlier, when calls was the primary service being used by users, today we can make calls using data, as in WhatsApp calls. Let us understand some of the commonly used terminology in telecom. Now, what is spectrum? Spectrum is nothing but radio frequencies present in the air that companies use to provide connectivity services. Everything from FM radio to Wi-Fi to mobile networks operate on spectrum with different frequency bands. Now, spectrum or frequency bands are government property. They are leased out to operators for a fixed amount of time. They are also intangible and perishable commodity. Now, each frequency band is a specific range of frequencies in the RF spectrum, which are divided among ranges from 3 Hz, which is extremely low frequencies, to 3000 GHz, which is extremely high frequencies. And each band has a defined upper and lower frequency limit. Now, there is a low frequency, there is a mid frequency, and there is a high frequency. Each band has its own capabilities. The G in 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G means generation. It signifies evolution in technology and improvement in data speed, latency, capability, and capacity. Understand the issues pertaining to call drops specific to the Indian market affecting the quality of services, we spoke to telecom experts. Parag, ex-Vice President Qualcomm, Government Affairs, India and South Asia, explains some of the key problems here.
The reason the quality of service has become an issue is because of 3 main verticals. The first vertical is that the network has become very heterogeneous. The operators have the responsibility to manage multiple types of networks simultaneously. Now they have 2G, they have 3G, they have 4G, and now they have 5G. Now when you have different technologies are being managed by the same operator, integrated by their core network, when a consumer moves from one network to another, the connectivity transfer does not happen seamlessly. And this is peculiar to our country because we have different types of consumers with different type of disposable income. Now, we can't really get the 2G services out of the market completely because there are consumers who actually their lives are dependent on 2G because they can't afford 3G, 4G and 5G phones. Second problem that we are facing in our country is ubiquitous coverage. Now, what is a mobile network? The mobile network primarily runs off RF spectrum. Now, if you are trying to access the network from any part of the country, we need to be within the reach of the RF spectrum. Unless and until the density of the network is good enough to be able to cover every hook and corner of this country, the consumer will not be able to get a seamless connection. Now, there is a problem here. The problem is that different types of frequency bands leads to different types of coverages. Now, the low frequency bands typically have higher coverage. So the signals carry forward further from the base station. The mid frequency bands, the coverage is somehow lower than the low frequency band coverage, and the high frequency band has got the least coverage. Now, you need all the 3 different types of bands. The 5G spectrum, which is the recent deployment which the government of India has been pushing the operators to do, and operators have taken a lot of pride in having deployed this network in the fastest way possible. These networks have been primarily deployed in the mid and the high frequency band. Carpet to carpet coverage of the 5G spectrum or 5G network is not aligned with the 2G and the 4G and the 3G spectrum band because those are deployed in the low frequency band. So that's the problem. So you have got a discontinuity of coverage because high frequency band does not penetrate indoors. Most of the time, a consumer is either sitting in his office or working from his home. There is another problem. Conventionally, in other technology like 2G and 3G, you can be dependent on Wi-Fi network because Wi-Fi network will be able to supplement some of the connectivity. But with 5G, Wi-Fi does not work better because 5G has got much lower latency. Now, since have got different types of network. 4G is in the low frequency band, 5G in the high frequency band. When switch off happens between technologies, for operators to really unlock the value of 5G, not only you need low frequency band, but you need to choose one particular low frequency band. You cannot basically mix and match between low frequency band because of problems in network coverage, which will happen because your network coverage is going to shrink if you are going to mix and match between bands. The third part is that the low frequency band, which has got maximum coverage, is underutilized in our country.
TV Ramachandran, President of Broadband India Forum and the first CEO of erstwhile SR Telecom in 1994, which today is known as Vodafone India Limited, underlines the criticality of network design and also explain some of the other issues here.
Unless you've got the optimum location of the towers, you will never get a proper signal correctly at all the right places. If you've got a density of users here, high density of users where I am sitting, and there is not enough towers around here nearby, but somewhere else where you've got some towers where the people are not there, where cows and buffaloes are there, it doesn't help anybody. If not the number of towers, the right location of towers, and the right type of tuning. It is like a musical instrument. When you buy a guitar or a veena, you do a tuning. Like that, the entire mesh of towers and other supporting switches, etc., have to be tuned up to give the optimum performance. It has to be correctly networked. And there's a lot of challenge in that. That depends on the operator, clearly. So operator can do a lot to tune a network, even within his resources. He should try to optimize it to the maximum. But he just can't help it. If there is a defense area, cantonment area, and they don't allow towers, what the hell do I do? How can I set up a tower there? Yes, before we design a network, our radio engineers, we send them out, they do drive tests, they go around, measure signals, etc., try their best. But it's impossible to do a perfect job. A crucial role can be played by RF engineer in the team who knows how to design not only the network, but also how to design the tuning, maintenance. If he sees them to make the power go down in one side, increase the power in another, it is like what I said perfectly. Like tuning an instrument to get the best. It is that sort of art. It's an art as well as a science. Then how many people are logging into the tower? Depends. If I'm using a very data-intensive app like video streaming, that will be very different to an email browsing. All these problems are there. So a good RF engineer, a good network engineer would take care of all this properly. So they have to place the optimum number of towers, drive around, see the configuration, everything, know the traffic flow patterns, actual studies of traffic flow, morning, evening. When we did that in the original days, I don't know whether we do it now, even if there is no drop, you cannot have any means of guaranteeing a steady speed in a mobile network. Nowhere in the world do they do that. Civil authorities, defense authorities, municipal authorities, they all have a role to play to help the operators get the location. There is also a lot of fear mongering. The power of the waves is very low, I can tell you that. And been repeatedly vouched for by no less than the highest authorities in Geneva, by a very, very impartial source, which is the World Health Organization. And ITU, International Telecommunications Union. You may not believe other parties which are private and exist for profit, but they are not that. So they have done studies. I have been involved in some of the studies. It is clear that the electromotive force, EMF, as they say, radiation from the antenna is far below anything that worries a human being. That's another reason why people don't permit towers. The local activists at one time in Jaipur, they used to shut down our operating towers, victimize the people who allowed it. And so we had to go to the police. Police would not help. These are the problems which those operators have to battle to set up a network. So my sympathies are very much with the operators for that. So they have to make compromises. So I'll compromise by placing the tower at some nearby location closest to that. But that's a compromise. So somebody is going to suffer on the quality in the call drop. Quality of phone. Phones which come from certain countries are a very suspect quality. Even the customs are supposed to have banned some of those phones, but still they come in because the enforcement is so weak in this country. You use a phone of that quality, it will actually affect the network. A small thing like a phone, a few phones of that type can badly upset the network quality, and it will also have more of call drops, things like that. People they take it for granted. You can, in certain cases, you can yourself see between 2-3 bands of even good branded phones, there can be differences in how they pick up a call.
With the government keeping cost of the telecom spectrums high, experts said that it needs to rationalize its policy on pricing. Spectrums are, after all, a perishable commodity. Reducing the cost of the spectrum by 10% to 30%, making the spectrum unaffordable, weeding out healthy competition in the market, having monopolistic trade practices affects quality of services.
Allocation of these resources has to be done meticulously and in a structured manner. Now, BSNL has been given spectrum in the 700 MHz band to roll out 4G services. At the 700 MHz band, internationally, the 700 MHz band is not good and optimal spectrum for 4G. This is actually a 5G band. Rather than giving BSNL 700 MHz spectrum, whatever spectrum that was available in the 800 MHz band, which is currently lying vacant, BSNL could have been given spectrum in the 800 MHz band. What would have happened is it would have allowed BSNL to leverage the economies of scale, the low-cost devices which are already in the market. You need to have a holistic plan taking into consideration all the participants in our telecom sector. These players are not only driving their own vested interests as far as their company shareholding and value is concerned, but they are acting as a contributor towards the country's economy.
Multiple technologies being there are going to create handoff problem, etc. Going to the higher Gs is going to create this problem of coverage inside buildings, of shorter distance of the waves. Every technology has a place. Mobile is for when you're on the move. Today, 70 to 80%, rising even to 90% in some cases, data traffic is inside buildings and campuses. When that is the case, what do I do? So for that, you need a powerful Wi-Fi inside. Because a 5G wave or a 6G wave will not come in. Inside the buildings, there has got to be powerful modern Wi-Fi. In this country, we have modern Wi-Fi. In fact, we've got very little public Wi-Fi. Our availability of public Wi-Fi hotspots in India is not even 1%. How is that Wi-Fi independently? I'm a small Wi-Fi operator. I put up a powerful Wi-Fi. I'm not an operator, Airtel or Jio, giving my own private Wi-Fi, but a public Wi-Fi I'm giving. If I'm a public Wi-Fi, how will it work? It has to pick up the signal from the external wave. Maybe I can put up an antenna in the window or on the roof terrace and pick up the 5G signal, convert it into, take it inside and convert it, run it on my Wi-Fi signal. And today, modern Wi-Fi signal, which are enumerated as Wi-Fi 6E and Wi-Fi 7, they are almost as good as 5G. You won't believe. It is actually the poor man's 5G. Rural areas will be able to afford it because they'll be very low cost. Even when you do on Wi-Fi, the operator will benefit. Why? Because the Wi-Fi operator does not have the permission or license to set up a core network. Unless I have a core network, how can I carry the call? So I have to hand over the call. My problem is inside buildings and campuses, inside AIMS or inside Apollo. There are thousands of patients and thousands of attendants. They all want to use. If I provide powerful Wi-Fi inside, take it and give it to the carrier, who is just outside the building, Airtel or Jio, or then you get more data traffic. They don't have that today. So I'm actually giving them incremental revenue. Don't realize that they will not do it, they will not allow others to do it. Because they're saying, no, Wi-Fi is our preserve, which was there at one time. It is now liberalized, anybody can set up a public Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi, you'll never have a call drop because there's enough of waves inside the building. You're going to use it only inside. It's a very powerful. Today's Wi-Fi, which is not there in India yet, Wi-Fi 6E, Wi-Fi 7. In fact, you'll be very proud to know that Wi-Fi 7 802.11, which is the latest Wi-Fi. It has been launched abroad just now, a few months ago. Semiconductor chip for that was exported a few months ago by none other than HFCL, one of our own companies, Indian companies. But we are not using it in India.
With over 600 million public Wi-Fi hotspots across the world, India has less than 500,000. Where countries have 80% to 100% fiberization, India has merely 30 to 35%. Countries like Singapore, Hong Kong, South Korea, Japan and others have the fastest internet speeds in the world, primarily due to fiber. Having said that, each technology has its own strengths and limitations. In remote and inaccessible areas like Kargil, Chhattisgarh, Northeast Frontier region or terrorist-prone areas where fiber will not go, one will have to depend on satellite mobiles. Moreover, the defense sector itself may need a huge amount of spectrum. Despite the drawbacks, India has caught up with the rest of the world to become a mobile phone country. However, with the coming in of deeper and deeper data-intensive apps, deficiencies in the system can be addressed by choosing technologies like Wi-Fi, broadband and fiber, because after all, consumers should not be subjected to poor quality of service at the hands of service providers. Thank you for watching Checks and Balances.